Hi, I'm Rachel Hunter, and welcome to Human Spirit with Rachel Hunter. So this is going to be my first vlog on my own to kind of give you a backstory of who I am if you don't know where I kind of came from. So I grew up in Auckland, New Zealand, and I had a wonderful childhood. We grew up kind of in an area where it backed down onto the bush. So I was very, very, very drawn to the elements and playing in the open. I mean, in New Zealand, we have a lot of farmland and a lot of areas to kind of run like that. And, you know, as an average student in school. Hi, I'm Rachel Hunter, and welcome to Human Spirit with Rachel Hunter. So this is going to be my first vlog on my own to kind of give you a backstory of who I am if you don't know where I kind of came from. So I grew up in Auckland, New Zealand, and I had a wonderful childhood. We grew up kind of in an area where it backed down onto the bush. So I was very, very, very drawn to the elements and playing in the open. I mean, in New Zealand, we have a lot of farmland and a lot of areas to kind of run like that. And, you know, as an average student in school, I trained and loved ballet. I was a dancer from 5 till about 15 years old, and grew up with a mother that was very spiritually curious, and she would expose us to all sorts of different religions. I mean, one time I would come home and there would be, to Mormons, and then we would go and, you know, a few years later, we would kind of go into born again Christian, receiving the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, all this type. So Mum was a very curious spiritually, and she also very much was involved in pagan. So she really loved the spiritual aspect of nature itself. My sister and I have a sister who's a year older than me, and obviously my wonderful father. But I was a very inward child. I was very, very inward and really took in nature and the signs of nature, and was very kind of withdrawn and quiet as a child. But again, you know, I felt very, very close to my mother. And very close to my sister. So I had a very normal kind of upbringing. At 5, I decided that I really loved to I saw my sister dancing, and I decided that I wanted to do ballet. So from 5 till 15, I studied ballet. And at that time, I came down at 15 years old with a blood disorder called toxoplasmosis. And that really kind of took a lot of healing. For about 18 months, I really had no energy. So at that point, it kind of put me back to a place where I was about to do solo seal, I think around that time, and which is a grade in dance. And I couldn't, because I mean, I couldn't even go out for a drive. I was very, very tired. And my mother really nurtured me through that. And she actually took me to an Ayurvedic doctor, if I remember, and I was drinking teas and all these things. And that kind of, I remember she tried everything. She was never shy of the curiosity of trying things, especially spiritually. After I got better from that, then I was a runner at school as well, and started running again to get my strength up, and still tried to continue with dance. And at that time, I would run along Takapuna and Milford Beach in Auckland, New Zealand. And that is where this photographer had been walking, and he came up to me and said, "Would you ever consider modeling?" And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. No. And went kind of home and told my mother, and kind of forgot about it. But cut a long story short, I ended up in Australia working for a short period of time, where I was working for Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, and then ended up in New York and ended up living there from basically 17 all the way through. And so my life went from very young, 16, 17-year-old to going over to New York and living in New York and working as a modeling, traveling around, doing different campaigns. I got married very, very young, and in my early 20s, and then had two beautiful children. And I'm forever, a wonderful marriage, incredible children, and now I have two grandchildren as well who are just incredible as well. So that is I'm going to keep that as it is, because obviously we're kind of talking more on where I am now, because you can kind of go Google that if you want. After this time, I too was also curious. My sister and I have always been, because we had a mother like this, right? So I ended up, anytime I was kind of down, I would end up either in a church, spiritually curious. It was like, I'm exhausted, I surrender. God, where can I be, right? It kind of gets to that exhausting surrender where you're just like, please help. So different parts, I ended up in a church. I also, through a very good friend of mine, suggested that I go and study with Laurie Cabot, who is a witch in Salem, Massachusetts. And I studied with her on and off for some time, and she really taught me some beautiful grounding foundations, especially in regards to the elements, earth, water, air, obviously space, and obviously there's also fire. But with those elements, it kind of gave me a deeper understanding to the elements. And when you look at the elements, that also becomes a part of what we are internally as well. Obviously air, earth being part of the body, etc. I can go into that in another place as well. So there was a great foundation there. And so I really started seeing there was actually teachings with that. And that was beautiful. And I always kind of merged that, because when you look at all these spiritual practices, there is some connections. And so I did that for some time. My house always had crystal balls, tarot cards, sage, all of this. But I also, such as this YouTube is called Human Spirit, we're having a human experience, and obviously there's an energetic spiritual side as well that we're deeply connected to at certain points. Some people take it on as a practice, living practice for the rest of their lives. Some people obviously come in and out, and whatever way it is, it's perfectly fine. There's never feel judged on that or not fulfilling, because what is meant to be will happen. And so my journey continued with this, and my curiosity continued with this. And, as we saw, on my Instagram, I just put up just recently was the 11 years of being, 11 years ago of being in India, and how that particular country and location has been tremendously powerful for me. And that's my place. That's where I love. And it continued. First of all, there was that introduction while we were doing Tour of Beauty. And then after that, few years after that, I didn't get to return. And when I did, it was at the death of my mother, which really propelled that journey vastly forward. It's incredible when grief comes in, what there is and how it moves through you, and what your actions are with that are different for everybody, and everyone's deep grief process is deeply different. I can only speak from my perspective on this and my journey with that. So I ended up in India, and from that point on, and this was back in 2017, a lot has changed. Obviously, there's so much more to my other story, from back surgery to toxoplasma to all these other things, but we all have this in life, many people. And I'm grateful for what I have, because obviously there's a lot more that people don't have, but they have abilities to have so much grace and gratitude, and I think that's so important in life, to be in gratitude for what we actually have. But it's a hard place because obviously the fluctuating states. So anyway, I ended up being in India and have gone through many different, from traveling through India alone to the many temples, to Kamakya, up to Badrinath, through Rishikesh, through Haridwar. Spent a lot of time in Haridwar, and obviously do the tours through here as well. I am someone who just wants to kind of share the journey. And some of you have asked for that and how I got into that. And it's making choices. It's making actions. It's almost seeing the signs and what you're drawn to. And there's a brave part of it as well where, okay, I really feel this and really feel this back. Am I brave to go forward and do it? And sometimes you are and sometimes you're not, depending. And that is a choice that we all make responsibly and through our own practice and our own decisions in our own life, depending on what is happening also around. So there's many things to look at in some ways. But I just wanted to pop on and kind of give you an intro of where it is, because it's not like something just kind of beamed down from the sky and all of a sudden this is what happened. This has been an undertone, an undulating undertone, a thread. It's kind of a sutra throughout my life. The energy or spirituality and the identifications, obviously, you identify where it's strong at some points in life and weaker at other points. But there's sometimes that real big boot that comes along and it's like, phew. And for me, that was the death of my mother, and that really pushed that through. And as I've said before in another interview, I got to ask her a few weeks before she died what she regretted in her life. And she turned to me and she goes, Rachel, I wish, I regret not being who I am, right? Who I am. Now, it's not what you want to be, but who you are. Like that was her embodiment. And I think that this is such a beautiful statement to be unapologetically yourself, obviously moving with respect and responsibility and all the rest of it. But at the same time, having that, not apologizing for the strength of who you are and for the sensitivity and the compassion or the empathy or whatever it is, but also through, not apologizing for who you are. Now, that's always kind of fluctuating too. Like I am by no means, I'm always going back and then come forward, then back and forward. You realize self-realization, come forward, then go back and then come forward, and then something else comes up and down and up and down. And when you really, truly, deeply resonate with that grit at the bottom, there's some real hard truths there. And then there's more and more and more. But that's the beauty of life. And there is, as they say, no destination. It's all just a continual journey. But that's the beauty, is there's never an arrival. So anyway, I hope this kind of gives you somewhat of an entry of who I am, the backstory. Pop into the comments which part of the conversation you would like me to elaborate on more. It depends on my personal life how much I want to elaborate on that. But I can definitely answer to those questions through the comments below. So I hope that helps. And even if you're looking at that spiritual journey, which I'll speak to maybe in the next video of, what are those things that you look for? How do you start? And I'll give you one thing: close your eyes and just be with this just for a second and feel that alone is beautiful, is energetic, is spiritual, because you're being with your own energy, your own beautiful divine energy. And every single one of us has this. So I hope you have a beautiful day. Pop in the comments what you would like to hear more of, and I will speak to you soon. All right. Om Namo Narayan.